Hey everybody, welcome. I've recently hit a couple milestones with the channel. The first one was a few months ago. The channel surpassed 1 million individual views. And the second one was more recently. We just hit 5,000 subscribers. Now 5,000 is not an official milestone, but it kind of feels that way to me. And I wanted to say thank you for everybody for watching the videos and subscribing and liking them and following along on all my projects. I've put this video together for you, and we're going to do a quick shop tour and check out my current fleet and all my engines and whatnot, and maybe even check out a couple different places on the property just to show you some things that you haven't seen yet in the videos. Let's head into the shop to start with. I just picked up this old angle vise at a garage sale today for $5, made in USA. I thought that was pretty cool. Looks like it's still functional, and I think it could be used for either wood or metal. I thought I would come out here and tidy things up before I shot the video, but then I decided no, I'm going to show you everything exactly how it is, good or bad, clean or dirty. I don't want to bore you with this stuff too much, so I'm going to try to keep this relatively fast-paced. These two Farmall tractors here are two of the nicer items in my collection, I think. Even though there isn't a lot of room in here, I want to keep them inside and out of the elements to keep them nice. This is the 1949 Farmall Cub, and its big sister here is the 1948 Super A. Both of these tractors are in very nice condition, and they both run great. Back there I've got my little air compressor. I've had it for about 20 years. It works okay for me, but I am just about due for a larger capacity compressor. It's not high on the list, but it's something I'd like to get in the future. There's my Logan lathe back there that some of you saw me restore, or at least clean up and get back into working condition. And of course I've got my old Maytag engine. That's a 1937 opposed twin 2-cycle washing machine engine. And I still have this old Vietnam era 2-cylinder Army generator that's getting in my way. I really don't have a use for it. I think it's a really cool piece, but like I say, I just don't have any use for it, so it's just kind of sitting around at the moment. All this stuff in here in those cabinets are my supplies for brewing beer. I brewed beer for many years in the early 90s and then got back into it again maybe 10 years or so ago. I haven't made any beer for about 3 years now, and I don't know if I'm going to get back into it or not. Here's the whiteboard. On the bigger projects, I find it very helpful to keep track of things that need to be done, because on the big projects and the long-term projects, I tend to forget about things if I don't write them down. So the big whiteboard here helps me keep track of everything. Down there I've got random oils and supplies. That's distilled water, that's vinegar, you know, simple green, all kinds of different stuff. I buy brake parts cleaner by the case. I wait for it to go on sale, and then I buy it by the case, and you know, you can save 12 or 15 bucks if you do it that way. Some random handheld tools there, and then some random aerosol stuff that I use a lot, you know, like PB Blaster and Brake Clean and Invisible Glass. This here is my battery charging station for my DeWalt tools, and now I have one Milwaukee fuel tool. I absolutely love this little impact driver. One of my current projects right now is this transfer case that came out of the Willys. I've already cleaned up this surface, got the gasket replaced here. I still have to put the seals in on both sides and get the rest of it cleaned up. All the tools that I use on a regular basis, I have either in the toolbox here, you know, wrenches, socket tools, and various stuff in the other two drawers, and then other things I can reach here on the wall. The smaller wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, and things. I like to keep it all in one area because I do a lot of work on top of this box. This is also a good location because I am near my drawers. You guys remember when Radio Shack went out of business, maybe 10 or 15 years ago or whenever that was? I went into one of the local ones when I was living in California, just looking around at their stuff, and they had I think they had 6 of these different cabinets, and they're really nice heavy-duty cabinets with drawers. Everything's metal except the inserts are plastic. You can remove them. Of course, they were full with a bunch of random Radio Shack stuff, and I asked the guy, I said, hey, any chance you'd sell a couple of those cabinets to me? And he thought about it for a minute and he said, yeah, sure, why not? So he and I went through both of these two right there in the store, emptied all the stuff that was in them, put them in a pile, and he even helped me load these into my truck. I got a good deal on those. I got back home later that evening. I said, you know what? I should go back and get a couple more of those. So I went back the next day and they were all gone. So the word got out. I even went to another store a few miles away and they had sold all theirs as well. So I got kind of lucky to get the two that I got. I use these drawers all the time. You know, this is my nuts and bolts drawer. You know, clamps, the springs, rubber things, grommets. This is my electrical drawer. But again, I find myself standing right here a lot because I have access to the drawers, access to the toolbox on wheels, and access to all those hand tools up on a wall. I do not have climate control out in the shop, so this is my heater during the winter. You know, because I spend most of my time right here, I usually just leave it set up right there. And when it's 10 degrees outside, that thing keeps me warm in here so I can keep working on stuff. My older son brought this rack home from work one day because they were getting rid of it. They were going to throw it in the garbage, and he brought it home because he thought he might use it for something. He decided he didn't want it after all, so I said, I'll take it. You know, the thing's all made of metal. It's not very big, but it's perfect for these kind of tools and collections, you know, in cases, sockets, and drill bits and whatnot. If you've seen that 1938, I think it is, Neptune, this is where it's at right now. It's completely disassembled, and I need to finish the cleaning and polishing process and put everything back together. But that's what all that stuff is. I've got some John Deere stuff right here, but it's mostly for the Neptune. As far as the stuff on the walls go, a lot of this stuff is antique car, you know, like Model T related stuff. Some of it is collectible and valuable, but some of this stuff is not. Like those pliers up there, they're virtually worthless, but they remind me of a day that I spent with a friend at a certain swap meet. So whenever I see those pliers, it reminds me of that day, and that's why I keep those around. So there's a couple other things up on the wall like that, but most of the stuff up here is collectible or unique or stuff that I think is cool. Here I've got a collection of every key that was ever made for the Model T, plus a master key set, which you don't see very often. On the floor there, I've got some antique, what I call speed jacks. They're really cool. This is an antique high lift jack. This is a modern high lift jack, and some more random Model T stuff and Fordson stuff over here. This was actually from the original fuel tank that I removed from the Fordson F because the tank that was on it was beyond repair. So I put a reproduction one on it just with one tank. They originally came with two. Got my little Hobart Handler 135. I have used the snot out of that thing. I probably had it for 20 years. Here I've got a bunch of tractor supplies, like random sediment bowls and switches and fuel filters and gaskets and gauges. On the top here I've got my Dremel and some of my Dremel bits. You guys see me use these little Scotch-Brite type deals all the time, so I try to keep a supply of those. This is another box full of them because I use them a lot. I also use the standard bolt gauge pretty often. That was a good addition to the shop. Right here is my battery station. This is usually where I keep the battery maintainers on certain batteries. This one here I use for my winch and my flatbed trailer, and I also use it for the WD-45 and whatever else needs a 12-volt battery on a moment's notice. My little drill press here, I got this a long time ago. It's nothing special. Honestly, I don't use it very often. I should use it more. This is a vise I picked up at a swap meet for 35 bucks and restored it, and I use this thing all the time. What I need to do is get this off the wooden bench and get it on a pedestal or something that's more solid where I can really use this to its full capacity. But as it is, I do use it quite a bit right here on the bench. I can swing it around, and then when I'm done, swing it back. There's another thing that should be on a pedestal because it's not in a very good location right there. I don't use it very often just because of where it is. Here's my bucket of scrap metal, 90% steel and probably 10% aluminum. A little bit of sheet back there, That's part of the brass tube I got for the Neptune. This is extra that I'll save and use for another project someday in the future. This is the bad generator that came off the Farmall Super A. This is the bad starter that came off the Farmall Cub. I don't know what I'm gonna do with those, maybe rebuild those someday. My soldering station back here used to be more prevalent on the bench, but it's kind of gotten crowded into that one spot there. The rest of all these parts right here is all from the Willys project. All this stuff is good. All this stuff works. It came off the running engine, but what I need to do is clean everything up, and I want to paint all these things before they go back on our brand new engine whenever we get that back, so everything looks nice. So that's going to be kind of a job in itself, just to get all this stuff cleaned and painted. And I don't do much work with wood, but this is a DeWalt chop saw that works perfectly. You know, I've got some random license plates. This one happens to be Oregon 1919, Indiana from 27. For a while there, I thought I might collect antique license plates, but I changed my mind quickly because some of them are very expensive, and I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole and end up with $5,000 worth of, you know, license plates just sitting there on my bench. Got some more random Model T stuff, old tires and tubes that aren't good enough anymore to be used on drivers, but they are good for rollers. The top shelf over here, got some of my collectible stuff. I'm really fond of this antique oil jar set, so I try to keep that safe because I don't want to break it. And I have a small antique can collection, but that's another thing you can go down the rabbit hole really quickly on. And some of these, especially the antique oil cans, some of these can go for thousands of dollars. So you really have to know what you're doing in that market, and I don't, so I'm staying out of that market. I do know a fair amount about these running board cans. Although my collection is small, I do have some nice ones up there. Any of the ones that are still covered in canvas, in my opinion, are the most valuable because the canvas has lasted all these years, you know, 50 years or 100 years or however old they are. If they still have the canvas on them, that means they were really well taken care of. Random tractor stuff up in here. This manifold happens to be an upside down intake manifold for a Fordson F. You know, an old magneto, random stuff. My antique steering wheel collection down there. I think I have 3 extra Fordson F steering wheels down there that I'm saving for a rainy day. And as we walk back this way, I'm going to try to climb this ladder without killing myself using one hand. But up in there, I've got a bunch of random tractor parts, nuts and bolts and hardware. I don't come up here very often. Sometimes I forget I have all that stuff. But I have found a lot of valuable stuff in there. And on this other side, most of this stuff over here is for WDs and WD-45s. 1947 Ford 2N, 1923 Ford Model T, 1924 Fordson F tractor, 1919 Ford Model T Roadster pickup, 1914 Ford Model T touring car, and that cute little car right there is our 1993 Mazda Miata. You know, this is not an antique, but it's a really fun little car to drive. All right, coming back outside here. We use the side-by-side a lot for projects around the property. There's my bigger anvil that I use more often, and this is my outside vise. There's my beautiful Ford 4000 and the WD-45 and that old Ferguson plow that I bought. And around the other side of the shop, luckily our local dump here is pretty cheap, but we always wait, you know, until we have a good truck bed load full of stuff before we go. So a lot of this stuff will be going to the dump, but some of it is still keepable. All that red stuff is Farmall Cub stuff. That leaf spring is an early Model T rear leaf spring, so I'm gonna keep that. The frame leaning against the building is a Model T frame, so someday I'll put together some sort of a Model T Doodlebug or a Model T tractor or something. This is the Ford 960. I use this about once a week. I love this tractor. This is the one that I leave the brush hog attached to all year. This is my Ferguson transport box that I used to leave connected to the Ford 2N all the time, but I don't have room right now because the Ford 2N is backed up into the shop, so I'm keeping this safe under cover so it doesn't get rusted out in the weather. That's the snow plow for the side-by-side. And this, of course, is the Case DC. That was one heck of a project, let me tell you. I don't use this tractor very often, and I can't say that I'm a huge Case fan, but this tractor might make me a convert because despite its rough look, this is a very capable tractor. I leave the grader attached to it for grading the driveway and other things like that. It's a big tractor. It's very heavy. It's got a decent amount of horsepower, and it runs great now that we did all that engine work. So I'm gonna hold on to this one for a while. Over at the main garage at the house, there's the generator. I've used, I think, 4 times now for power outages, and it's worked perfectly every time. I got this at the garage sale today too for $5. Metal drawers, it'll come in handy for something. Of course, the 1952 Willys truck that most of you have probably seen by now. Can walk around here on the other side of the house. I bought this 20-foot enclosed trailer when we moved up here a little over 5 years ago. And this is where I keep my 1926 one-ton Ford truck. They started making these about, I think, 1917 through 1927. This one's special in my opinion because it's an open cab, what we call a C cab. The interior is actually really nice on this. And this one has an auxiliary transmission in it, which is nice because these TTs were engineered to only go about 17, 18 miles an hour top speed. But with this auxiliary trans in here, I can get close to 30 miles an hour. I got this truck as a flatbed, and then I actually made it into a pickup bed. I did make a video on that on my channel if you want to check that out. That was a fun project. This, if I can open it, is a vintage picnic set. Plates look like they fell. They were supposed to be right there. Judging by the fact that it has plastic thermoses and plastic containers, my guess is that this is probably from the 60s or the 70s. But I don't think it's ever been used because the tablecloths and things are still wrapped in their original packaging. None of the silverware looks used. The plates are not cracked or anything like that. It's got all kinds of neat little stuff in here. But it's very heavy to lug around, and it takes up a lot of space. So I don't have it in the shop because I just don't have room for it. And I'll probably sell this someday also, just because somebody might enjoy it and get a little bit more use out of it than I do. This is an antique toolbox actually installed to the bed of this truck. It's really pretty amazing that these trucks were rated for a 1-ton capacity, and it has wooden spoked wheels all the way around. So now we'll head back by the wood pile real quick. That's a garden shed where I keep all my lawn equipment and assorted stuff. This, of course, is my flatbed that I bring all my rescue tractors home on, so I've got a lot of use out of this thing. I put that box on there. It's got a 10,000 pound Warren winch in there, and I've also used the heck out of that winch. I'll probably never own another flatbed trailer without a winch on the front. This here is a Model T trailer. It's got Model T wheels on it. These are just reproduction Model A type lights, but they actually work, and I've got a wire loom in the front that plugs into my 1919 Model T. I don't go to many car shows, but whenever I take the 1919 to a car show, I always like to put the trailer on it because it kind of matches the car and it looks nice. We burned about 3 cords of wood this year, a little bit less than I thought we would, because we don't burn 24 hours a day, but we burn from morning until bedtime, and then we let it go out and start it up again in the morning. So somewhere between 3 to 4 cords per winter is usually what we go through. Back behind the wood pile here is an old pipe from something, and right down there is an old brake drum and axle. The axle goes that way, and I have no idea what that was from, but it looks like a heavy duty drum, so it's probably off some type of a truck. We have about 5 acres here, which is plenty for us as we're starting to get a little bit older, but I only maintain maybe 2 or 3 of the acres. And this is, of course, is the John Deere that we've been working on. We just finished up that big rim restoration project. This is an old truck bed from a Model TT Canopy Express. I think that's what it is. You know, the walls of the bed are actually in pretty good condition, all things being considered. There's still paint on a lot of it, but the floor is completely rusted out and gone. I'll probably save this before it gets too far gone, or sell it, because somebody would probably like to have this. These paths out here I keep cut for us because we walk our dogs out here. Unfortunately, we only have one dog left. We lost one back in January, but we still have her sister. She's 14 and a half years old now and doing well, but you know, that's pretty old for a dog, so we enjoy our walks with her every day. Those are the old wheels that we removed from the Fordson F tractor. They got replaced with those red ones that I got from Doug. Even though I haven't brewed beer in 3 years, I'm still caring for these hops plants. We've got 3 different varieties right now, and they look very healthy. No buds yet, but it's very early in the year. This here is what we call our salsa garden. Right here we have different types of tomatoes, different types of peppers, jalapenos, bell. I think we have a couple of cucumber plants in here just to see if we can get any of those to grow. And a bunch of onions here, outdoor fireplace right there. And here we are back at the shop. So thank you guys again for the 1 million views and the 5,000 subscribers. I'd be doing all this stuff anyway, but it's nice to be able to share it with other people that have the same interest. So my plan is to continue the channel for a while and keep doing what I'm doing. And I hope you guys keep tuning in. Thanks again, I appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you on the next video.